It's time now for business, and we're going to go to the World Economic Forum in Davos and join our business editor, Stephen Carroll. Stephen, Davos, more than just a talk shop, the US and France making progress, it seems, on a framework over new international taxation rules.
Yeah, another step in the de-escalation of tensions between the US and France over France's digital tax that had made Washington very unhappy. They felt it was unfairly targeting American firms. All this week we've had news of the truce that has been agreed, that France will not be collecting the payments of that digital tax in 2020. They've delayed that until a new global agreement can be found. In exchange, America has lifted its sanctions. Today we learned, after another meeting between France's Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire and the US Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, that they have agreed on a framework for talks on a new global tax deal at the OECD. We understand that they have narrowed down the list of options that they're going to be discussing in those talks to try and come up with a new global deal. And crucially for France, they have agreed that to link both a new tax on digital companies and a minimum global corporate tax. America had wanted to make the digital element of that deal optional, but France says they have managed to bundle the two of those together in a package in this agreement. France's Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire was asked, though, in a press conference whether or not France had capitulated on its tax in the face of a tough American negotiating position. Let's take a listen.
We can be aggressive too. I mean, we can be tough too. And we have been tough from the very beginning. If France would not have been the first European country to introduce a national digital taxation, there would not be any discussion at the OECD level anymore. It would have been buried, to be very clear. We have been offensive, and we will never give up.
Okay, so a thaw of sorts in the trade relations between France and the United States. It's not the case all around.
No, well, there's still plenty of people here in Davos that feel that, especially the rich people should be taxed more, and that companies should be more and better held to account in how they pay their taxes. I heard one of those sort of overheard in Davos moments that I caught on Twitter earlier was that someone heard Davos being described as billionaires talking to millionaires about how to treat the middle class, and they're not. There's an element of truth in that in a lot of the discussions here as well. I've been talking about this issue of taxation and fairness, though, with Winnie Byanyima. She's the Executive Director of UNAIDS, and she says that really taxation, that money could be put to so much better use on issues like health issues. Take a listen to what she had to say.
In the area of AIDS, we've made a lot of progress, of course. The science has come. We have the science for prevention, the science for treatment, testing and treating. But yet, last year alone, there were 1.7 million people who were newly infected. And you know what's sad about that is very many of them are young people. For example, 6,000 women were infected every week. 6,000. It doesn't have to be like that. If governments collect the taxes they should collect from the rich, from business, there is enough money to pay for health. We estimate that, or we know that actually if billionaires were taxed just 1% additional tax on billionaires, that could pay for the health costs of all the low-income countries. So there is very little tax on wealth. Rich people have worked themselves out of the tax bracket. The tax of all the revenues collected, only 4% comes from wealth taxes. Now, that's unacceptable. There is a role that business can play. The first role is to pay their taxes and not to dodge. That's critical because we're losing more than $100 billion developing countries every year through their tax dodging habits. So that's one. To stop putting their money into lobbying governments to take them out of the tax bracket, pushing governments down the route of harmful tax competition, lower and lower tax collections because they lobby and they push governments down. They should stop those practices.
That's Winnie Byanyima from UNAIDS speaking to me earlier. Plenty more coming up on that issue of tax and digital taxation, the France 24 debate this evening coming from Davos. The French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire was there, the head of the OECD, Angel Gurria was there. We've got the head of Transparency International and Katarina Pister, Columbia University law lecturer as well. Really interesting discussion around the ethics and the practical implications of whether a new global plan can overhaul rules that are nearly 100 years old on taxing multinationals. The goal being that governments should get hundreds of billions of euros in taxation that currently companies are able to avoid using legal loopholes. Francois, I'm only putting you out a job for one evening. You'll be back on air as usual for the full France 24 debate.
Well, we
tomorrow.
look forward to it, Stephen. That's in a quarter of an hour's time or a little over. Thank you for that update live from the World Economic Forum in Davos. It's time now for sports.